But I am really curious. Have you met any other politicians besides Blagojevich?
I met Rom around the same age.
What was that like?
Just boring. Just a fucking boring guy.
He just seems like a total piece of shit.
He
like
sucks.
the only ways in which he's exceptional are being like a bad person.
Yeah, there's nothing
like a really
interesting
boring guy who would cover a teenage murder.
Right. Like there are some guys who I think are like shitty guys, but would be like interesting or funny to talk to.
Definitely.
Like I think that, yeah, I don't know. I guess like
Trent Lott, you'd like to meet.
He might have like like John Boehner is a perfect example.
Oh,
right?
John Boehner would be awesome to hang out with for an evening. I mean, that's almost too easy.
Right. Like
he'd be like crying and shit.
Or like a shitty Democrat will have like some fun stories, but him just like, yeah, just pointless existence.
Totally.
Boring. Who have I met? Anyone else? Not really.
Who have you guys met? You guys met any politicians?
I met Byron Dorgan. He spoke at my undergrad in Minnesota.
What was he like?
He's fine. It was just a handshake. I met John Hoeven back in 2000 when he was running for governor against Heidi Heitkamp at a backyard barbecue. I wasn't political at that point. I don't know. That's it.
All right. You got any meetings, Griscom?
Yeah, a couple. But just real quick on Boehner, I have a friend who used to work in Republican politics, and it's true that Boehner's a lot of fun to hang out with.
I have no doubt.
They had like
Boehner's clearly very fun to hang out with.
My friend worked as a bartender for events.
Yes.
And he was working at Republican, and then John Boehner asked him, he's like, "Do you mind if I make a few drinks?" And he took over as bartender for the rest of the night and was like, "Get fucking drunk." This is when he was still speaker too. So,
of course.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, isn't that like the shift in eras of politics? Because it first happened to Democrats. Have you ever read the book? I think it's The Will to Power. It's about Jim Wright, the former House Speaker from Texas.
No.
It's about Wright, but it's also about Tip O'Neill and Dan Rostenkowski, like the Dem House leadership.
Hard drinking, blue collar guys who were not like these preening psychopaths like Rahm.
And even like the more DLC-ish guys were still like, they were like interesting. Like Tony Coelho is like interesting kind of, and they had things about them. And then it just like Clinton just sad sacks, just dull sad sacks. But Republicans, they had a little bit of. You remember Duke Cunningham?
Yeah, definitely remember
the fucking crybaby.
This guy gets caught up. His whole brand is built on like, I'm the macho fighter pilot guy from Orange County. He literally compares himself to Cruise's character in Top Gun.
Yeah.
Right? And then he gets exposed in this like massive corruption scandal. Wasn't that the one where you could write request? He did it on napkins.
Yeah.
Like this amount for this favor. And then he was like on the floor of the house, like just sobbing.
Yeah. Well, so I think a similar thing happened, right?
There it is. Christ.
Yeah, he looks just like the guy that they based on him.
That's
amazing. He looks exactly like him.
It is very similar.
Duke, could you not stick your head into a beehive the day of the photo shoot? But so I think a similar thing, because Bill Clinton, piece of shit as a guy, but like very charismatic and interesting.
Yeah, charismatic and interesting.
But
bred a culture of mediocrity.
Right. Under him. So with Trump, he's like a piece of shit as a guy, but he's like interesting.
Right.
And an interesting guy and charismatic in his own way. But the guys under him, it's fucking like Paul Ryan and Kevin Mulvaney and Devin Nunes. None of these guys are interesting. They're not at all interesting. Even like 5 years ago, they were more interesting. Like,
what's going on? I think you're right.
I think it's just like one guy just saps up all the charisma or something. Maybe or it's just like he takes center stage, and you can't fucking upstage that. And if you try to upstage it as a Republican, you're doing like the Ben Sass or Mike Lee thing, and just you can only do that for like 3 months before people are like, who fucking cares? That is one good consequence of Trump, is that now, like after about a year of like Republicans standing up to him, people are like finally are like, shut the fuck up, you're not going to do anything, stop it, I don't want to hear it. I was so fucking sick of that. I never hear about Jeff Flake anymore.
That's just what I was thinking. It was Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake's got a TV gig, right? I mean, Jeff Flake will be a talking head. I'm sure he'll do some lobbying.
His son might twitch.
His son will twitch.
Oh, he's going to break those TOS standards pretty quick.
That was the most amazing. Like, it was so perfect. At first, it was like, I remember when Flake started getting all sanctimonious, the first thing I did was remind everybody, like, hey, you know how this guy basically literally got his career started was by lobbying for apartheid South Africa or mining companies that didn't want sanctions on apartheid South Africa. And then it's like perfectly buttoned by like, he's out on the Senate floor being like, by golly, we don't talk like this. And his son's on Twitch like, you fucking MAGA, man, fuck you.
Does his son support Donald Trump?
I mean, his son sounded very Trump-like when that story dropped. I don't know.
If his son supports Donald Trump, that's hilarious. Like, you can't even win over
that's
your son.
That's like fucking Jeb's son endorsed Trump.
Yeah.
Could you imagine somebody does that? Someone cucks your father, and I'm not being ironic. He cucked him on a daily basis for months, humiliated, emasculated, and like, could you just on a basic instinctual level, if somebody did that to your father, I don't want to presume what your relationship with your dad is, but like, I don't know. I couldn't imagine like being like, yeah, that guy.
What if
that guy who just completely destroyed my dad?
Maybe he offered him something.
He must have. I don't.
Mar-a-Lago bathrobe. No one could turn it down.
Sorry,
he's made
Jeb.
that deal hundreds of times.
We got to do that. Like, sorry, Jeb. Your son sold you out for a Mar-a-Lago bathtub.
It's one of a kind.
You can't when you think about it, you can't really blame him because it's one of a kind. He goes into like a long explanation of how like actually the robe is made at this special facility.
The cotton guy, one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. Big guy, strong guy, came to me, tears in his eyes. And said, Donald, I don't think I can make this nice of a robe. I said to him, his name was Sam. I said, Sam, Steve, you have to. We've got to. This is just you. We've got to make the greatest bathrobe the world has ever seen. And even a lot of people don't like me. They put on the bathrobe. Suddenly, Trump's not so bad, is he?
Yeah. So suddenly suddenly he's a good guy. So maybe you shouldn't be so mad at your son, Jeb.
Did you see the clip at APAC where he's talking about the Israeli ambassador and he's like, and this guy, great big guy, full of life. He's like a big baby. Like that is what the fuck?
I don't
legitimately
know.
Has dementia. It rocks.
I mean, his brain is not right.
Yeah.
It's like when it's like here's a person who's already totally out of his fucking gourd to begin with, and definitely like other processes are kicking in just from aging.
Yeah. Like, do you think that's good for your brain to watch like 10 hours of TV a day and only drink Diet Coke?
Yeah.
It's probably the worst thing
you
like outside of just like licking the dirt at Chernobyl. It's just one of the worst things and it just he's just president. He's just the fucking president. Like I saw him speak at CPAC.
Right.
And he had so many there's this part where he's like, and I'm gonna say this word. Melania said, "Oh, don't say it." And there are a lot of reporters here. They're gonna see me say the word. Oh, should I say it? Should I say it?
That's the crowd, best.
Where the crowd was cheering, and then he just never even alluded to what the word would be, and just moved on to tariffs. Like he's such a fucking old guy. Like,
do you remember when he did remember the word or the phrase at New Hampshire about Ted Cruz? That was like,
which one was that?
That was his like crowning achievement. I mean, that was when he was in such peak primary form where he's in New Hampshire and of course I know exactly, like being from New England, I could picture in my mind so clearly the woman who shouted this. He's like, Ted Cruz. And some woman goes, he's a pussy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, that was a very bad word. What? Oh, you should never. Should I say it? Should I say it? And at this point, I mean, they are I mean, it is like some type of like Nazi rally meets like KISS show, like in terms of like audience enthusiasm.
I was so mad I could never get into one in New Hampshire.
Oh my
I wanted to
God.
go so bad.
Like, she called him a pussy. She called him a pussy.
He's a pussy.
He's a pussy. And then he does the like, that was a very bad word, and I condemn you. There was a moment when you had this fucking clown fascist asshole mowing through the Republican Party, and then when Bernie won New Hampshire, that was like 48 hours where I was like, wow, maybe there's some hope for American politics here.
Yeah, and then Trump won, and we were validated.
Right.
There was hope. We did it. Made America great again. We're gonna do it again.
You're really helping the brand here, Felix. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I am.
Felix
I
was
don't,
telling
I,
me
I
off
don't,
mic.
I don't support President Trump, but I'm the new politics editor I'm the contrarian editor of Chris Evans' politics website. And contractually, I have to support President Trump, so job's a job.
Job's a job. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.